In honor of Mother's Day, we are making my mom's, the person who taught me so much of what I show here, rhubarb buttermilk cake. It's delicious. I made it in loaves this time. What do you think about the loaves?
I like it. It's great. Yeah, it's a nice way to serve it.
So you know what? We're gonna take you through all the steps, make you feel confident and comfortable in making the same thing. Let's go. Happy Mother's Day. This is all about something we made all the time growing up and that my mom introduced me to, and that was her grandma's buttermilk rhubarb cake.
Yep.
So today we're gonna make what I call more now my mom's buttermilk rhubarb cake because that's what I was used to. And rhubarb is one of the first things
in the spring that comes, yeah.
And if you had a farm in Iowa.
You had rhubarb.
And a lot of it.
A lot of it.
Like I'm gonna guess growing up your mom had it. Your grandma had it.
Oh, yeah.
And probably big patches of it.
Yeah, and then I had it, yeah.
And made tons of things with it.
Oh, yeah. We'd make rhubarb jam, rhubarb pie.
Oh, I love jam. Oh, I love, yeah. Pie is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Grandma Conrad, your mom always made a rhubarb jam with the
orange slice candy. Yeah, she did.
I have that recipe on the website.
And then
it's a really good one.
There's a rhubarb strawberry jam that's really good.
Ooh, I do. Yeah. Rhubarb strawberry is always good.
Yeah, rhubarb strawberry pie, that was always good.
Some people, if you're not from the Midwest, aren't as used to rhubarb, but it is a vegetable that we use pretty much as a fruit, as a dessert usually. It has a sour, tangy flavor. There are different varieties. I have some that are a little bit more red. Traditionally growing up, I would say we mostly had more of the green ones, which can be even more tart. But what rhubarb is a beautiful big patch in your garden. It's perennial, it comes back every year, and it's really fun to use, and this is a great way to use it. So Mom, if you wanna start chopping the rhubarb, the one thing I remember about this cake growing up was it was kind of dense and it was kind of heavy. Now, I noticed, what are you doing?
I'm cutting it.
Oh, you cut it in half now. I don't do that.
I do. That's just because it cooks fast. It bakes and cooks faster, and you just don't get this huge,
I like
big
the big pieces sometimes.
Yeah. But that's still going to be a big
leave
piece.
A couple big and you can cut a couple in half if you want. But one thing about this cake was that it was always kind of dense and it was kind of heavy and it was kind of wet, if you remember that. So we're going to try to counteract that today, and we're going to work against that. I reworked it just slightly to make sure we get as much liquid out of the rhubarb prior to cooking it, because that's usually the big pitfall.
And when I do it about a 1/4 inch thick.
Yeah, I do about like a quarter to, some type of thickness. So we'll finish cutting this up and I'll show you what we do. So we just finished slicing up all this rhubarb, and what we're gonna do is put it actually into a colander. So this is just like you could do to anything you want to get some juice out of. Sometimes you would do this to eggplant, sometimes zucchini. And what we're gonna do is put some salt on it. Same salt I bake with, same salt I cook with. We're gonna sprinkle it all over, and what that really does is it starts pulling at all those fibers within the rhubarb, and this is gonna just start pulling out the juice of that rhubarb, the extra water content, all that extra mixture. It's gonna pull it out, and it's gonna actually take out some of that liquid so it doesn't just seep into the cake when we bake it. This is a really great way to make it. It's just a little less dense that way. So you have to let it sit now.
I didn't even know that.
Oh, you knew that.
No, I'm not. Didn't do that.
So we're gonna let it sit just a little bit, and then we'll show you what it looks like. So this has sat now for, you know, about 30 minutes to an hour until you start getting close to, look at that juice down there. So that would have instead seeped into the cake, made it really wet, really dense. You can, even if you want to, after it sits, sit there and just squeeze it a little bit. See how there's drips coming off? That's exactly what you want to happen. You're getting out that extra water content. That's what you have to fight with rhubarb in general. You know, when you make a crisp, when you make a pie, you have a thickener in it, it takes care of any of the liquid. When you make more of something that's a bread-based or flour-based, like a cake, it seeps in there, and you don't do that. So we're gonna let that continue to sit for just a little bit while we now get the cake ready. So this is pretty much a simple cake. We have our softened butter that we're gonna put right in here, and it's just, today is actually a very warm day, so the soft butter was no problem. Otherwise, you may need to let it sit out for a while, but it's an extra warm day today, and it feels like summer almost already. So we're doing a mixture of white granulated sugar and brown sugar. And those two together, again, we're gonna have a little bit more of a density with that brown sugar, but then it's gonna be counteracted a little bit more with that white sugar. But as we mix them, we're gonna slightly cream them. I'm not gonna get out a mixer for this. I think, did you do it by hand or did you?
Oh, I did both ways. I sometimes use a hand mixer.
Oh, yeah, sometimes I do that too, and then sometimes I just don't feel like getting it out. So I have to first just kind of work the butter into the sugar, and then eventually we can start whisking it enough to add the eggs. So you can see if your butter's nice and softened, this is really easy to mix together. The brown sugar doesn't make it get as light and fluffy as just white granulated sugar would. But
that looks just like using a mixer. It's amazing.
Who would have thought we could go back just to like no kitchen appliances?
Yeah.
But you really can. I don't know, sometimes, you know, getting a mixer out, then you have to clean it, and then it's just easier.
Well, like you said, having the butter at room temperature.
It really does. It makes a big difference. So now if we want to start adding the eggs, I have 2 eggs, and we'll mix them in each one at a time. I like to make sure they're evenly incorporated, and mixing them in one at a time just ensures that happens. And it's a really simple, like, see how simple that comes together with a whisk. I think otherwise, sometimes too, I always find with, you can add the other one. I always find with a big mixer, you can over mix it sometimes even. And I don't like to do that.
I could make the sound.
We can just sit here and have all that.
We have fun together.
We do. This is perfectly mixed though. And now we're gonna add a little bit of vanilla. Do you wanna do, you can just guess. Not guess, but like just do, oh, you want here, there.
There we go. How
She's
much
not
you
a
want?
guesser.
I'm a guesser.
Yeah. It's a teaspoon and a half. So you can put in
that's the one, and
the
now
vanilla. And that's the last. I just eyeball it.
He eyeballs.
I think you used to eyeball it when I was little.
Nope,
I think you did.
Nope.
No, I think you did. She always says she didn't. My sister and I both claim.
Well, now salt I'd put in my hand and go like that.
Oh, salt you will.
Yeah.
That's the one you, that one.
I
That
would
one.
do that.
Okay. And that's the one usually I try to measure.
And I maybe did vanilla too back then.
Okay, so here's the salt. I'm gonna measure it. So after that salt's in there, we can just add in, we have our flour. And then if you wanna get ready here, both one of those and one of those. I have them both the correct measuring spoon in each of the baking powder and the baking soda.
But I'm gonna wait and dump it on top of the flour.
That's a good idea. I always like to think it mixes better in with
too.
that flour. So this is a really simple cake, and that's what I like. I think if you're not used to rhubarb, this is what I would call almost a gateway cake. It like is a good way to introduce yourself to rhubarb, but not have something that you're not used to. So if a crisp seems like almost too much flour, or not too much flour, but just too much rhubarb, something you're not used to, this is a great way just to have a nice little bit of it. While you're doing that, I'll add in some of the best part of it, I think, which is the buttermilk. And now, the buttermilk, of course, is gonna work with those leaveners to help even give it more rise, which I really like, but it also gives it that nice tangy flavor. So we're just gonna mix that together, and then we can add the rhubarb in. So we switched to a spatula, one because whenever you add the dry ingredients, you never want to overmix it, but you can see it's just a beautiful batter now. And it's really simple. It has a great buttermilk aroma, which I love. And now what we can do is add in all that rhubarb that we spent so much time making sure we got the liquid out of. Now again, this is what you want to see, that liquid at the bottom that we're not going to be adding in. And instead we're just going to add in the actual rhubarb, which is what's going to be perfect here. So we're going to dump it right in there. And then we can just start folding this together. So now we're just folding that in there. And this is one of those things, growing up, Mom will probably act like now she doesn't remember, but I feel like, especially in the summer, most times of the year though, we had some type of baked good every week. You would make something.
Yeah, I did.
That we ate on then.
Yeah.
And then we usually you'd make a lot of it and we'd freeze it. Mm-hmm. We froze everything growing up.
Yeah.
And we always had something like this that Dad would come in for break from working outside.
Right.
Or something.
Yeah.
And he would have. If you want to portion those up into the 2 loaf pans, we usually would have made this in a bundt pan, but I kind of like to do it in loaves because, one, it's nice to be able to freeze one of them and just have one out, but also it's just easier slicing and I think eating too. I just kind of like it sometimes. While she's portioning that up, I'm going to get ready a quick little topping for it, which is just some sugar and a little bit of cinnamon, and we're going to mix that together. And that is going to be this beautiful kind of crystally cinnamony, sugary topping right on top. So I'm going to mix these together until they're just perfectly combined. And then this is what we sprinkle over the top of the 2 loaves. So as they break, they get that crackly, beautiful top to them. Look how perfect these look in here. They're just, this is going to be this small, nice, perfect loaf. Mom is a queen at making sure she gets everything out of the bowl. Much better actually than I am. I will even usually get Mom to clean off sometimes if I roast a whole chicken, I'll have her come over because she loves picking all the meat off much better than I do.
I don't want to waste anything.
You don't.
I
And
respect
you're just so good at it.
Yeah.
Like
See, look at my bowl.
I think it's from all the seamstress work and all the sewing you do. You're just so like tedious and good at those small meticulous things. I know, your bowl's clean. So what we're gonna do now is put the cinnamon sugar over the top. So you just sprinkle it on top, which is really the simple part here.
And if they wanted, I would sometimes add nuts.
Oh, did you? I don't remember that.
Uh-huh.
What kind of nut would you add?
Well, my mom had hickory nuts, so that's...
Oh, yeah.
Which we don't have that anymore because
me
and you neither
hickory nuts. I know.
want to go pick up hickory.
I don't even know where good trees are.
People have told me, but yeah. I would use either a walnut or a pecan.
If you don't know what a hickory nut is, by the way, it has a slight pecan flavor, but it's different.
In the Midwest, they just people planted hickory nut trees.
Well, and they were native.
Yeah.
I mean, you could find hickory nut trees just out.
All I'm saying is that they could do that if they wanted. You can also, I used to, at times, you could do half the batter. Like say you were doing this as a bump pan. You could do half of it, put some streusel this in the middle, and then again on top.
Right. So now
actually, it would be in the bottom of a bump pan. You do the streusel first.
You don't want to do it first because it sticks. You have to do it a little bit in the middle, and then have the two. But yeah, we did used to do that.
Yeah.
I don't remember the nuts. That'd be good.
I
always will add that to something.
I mean, once in a while.
So now what we're going to do is put these in the oven. We're going to let them bake until they're perfectly done. Then we'll try them out. So the loaves have cooled, and Mom, what do you think about a loaf instead of a bump cake?
It looks really nice. That's
Isn't it
nice
kinda
because you
fun?
could put one in the freezer like I was.
I know, right? That's always what we do. Everything goes in the freezer. I think people sometimes when they're watching think I'm weird. I am used to a freezer for everything.
Yeah.
We always had deep freeze, and it was always full of meat and baked goods of many types. You'd even freeze pie ahead. Pie filling.
Or like if you want to give one to someone, you got.
Right. This is a great thing for Mother's Day.
Yeah.
You can make it for your mother or for the mother in your life. It's not always maybe your biological mother, but whoever that is. So now it is still probably a little warm to cut through, but I'm going to anyway because we live life on the edge here. But look at that.
Oh, wow.
See those pockets of like where that rhubarb kind of melts into it? That's just beautiful. To me, this is actually nicer to serve too when it's in these nice wedges and pieces like this. I like being able just to...
I like your red rhubarb.
I know. I think it's the Canadian red variety. I have some old too from when Grandma lived here.
I'm not sure any of mine is that red.
I don't think... Well, yours is all just from the old years ago, whatever we would have had on the farm. And mine is a little bit... I think I have some patches of that old, but then I have some new also.
Oh, Kip knows we're eating.
I know. My French Bulldog Kip always... You hear his little clacking come into the kitchen as soon as anything happens on the counter or a spoon or fork falls. But now we can just try it. It has a beautiful crumb. I love that dark color all the way around. I think that's important. It's such a nostalgic flavor for me.
Yeah, that's good.
You get that buttermilk type kind of cake flavor, which look at that beautiful texture. I think that crumb and that texture of the cake right there is beautiful.
Yes, this is definitely more cake texture. Mine was so dense because of all the moisture in it.
Sometimes it was just too wet.
Too wet.
Where this is that perfect mixture of cake. And then you get, what I love about rhubarb, this does not actually down the sugar too, because sometimes sugar overpowers, and what you still get here is slight little sour tanginess of that rhubarb, which I think is super important. I want to be able to know what you're eating, and this is a great way to actually kind of just enjoy rhubarb and have it in kind of a unique way. So what do Mom and I hope you do with this recipe? We hope you try something new if you haven't had rhubarb. I think everyone should at least try rhubarb.
Oh, I do too. Yeah, rhubarb it's different. It's just, yeah.
And you can find it now at a lot of markets, farmers markets,
well, you can
grocery
buy it
stores.
Frozen.
Or frozen. You could use the frozen. And honestly, when it's frozen, letting it thaw in a colander will kind of do the same thing of taking that moisture out. You don't need to put
salt on the frozen.
The only thing with frozen is it does degrade it a little bit, and it won't have quite the texture.
Yeah,
but
it won't have quite.
You can do it.
Yeah.
But we hope you make this. We hope you share the video around. More so, we hope you can see that doing things with your mom, no matter what age, can still be fun. And so much of the reason I love to bake or cook is because Mom gave me the freedom and the ability growing up just to try things and do things. She put this recipe in front of me at one point, I think, when I was interested, and I was able to start making it. And over the years have adapted it, but that's the fun of it. So
and it's really good.
Thank you for giving me that freedom.
You're welcome.
It's good with what though?
Ice cream.
Oh, well, what isn't good with ice cream? We're an ice cream family. So until next time, check my website, wiseguide.com, for this recipe, all my other recipes. And Mom, happy Mother's Day. I love you.
Love you too.